I can still remember the first time I met Sophia like it happened yesterday. Funny how some memories burn themselves so deeply into your mind that no matter how much time passes, you can still smell the air, hear the voices, feel the weight of the moment pressing against your chest. I was 15 years old, a lanky, awkward sophomore at Austin High School, still reeling from the single worst event of my life, my mother's death. She had been my anchor, the one person who seemed to understand me without needing explanations. When cancer took her, it wasn't just her life that ended, it felt like mine did too. Those first months after she passed were a blur. I drifted through school like a ghost, showing up because I had to and sitting through classes without absorbing a word. My father did his best, but he wasn't the same either. He threw himself into his work, coming home late, avoiding eye contact with me as though he might drown if he looked too long. We lived in the same house but on different islands of grief. That was when Sophia walked into my life. She wasn't new to school, she'd always been there, just not in my world. Sophia was the kind of girl people noticed. But the day she first noticed me, I was sitting on the steps behind the gym, hiding from everyone, chewing on my grief like it was the only food I had left. "Hey," she said, her voice soft but steady. "You okay?" I didn't even look up. People asked that question out of obligation, not because they cared. But she didn't walk away. She sat down right next to me, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her shoulder. "You don't have to say anything," she added. "I just figured maybe you didn't want to sit alone." That broke me. Not into tears, not yet. But into noticing. For the first time in weeks, I felt someone's presence without feeling suffocated by it. I mumbled something stupid, like, "Yeah, I'm fine," but she didn't call me out on the lie. She just stayed there. That was Sophia's gift, she knew how to be present without demanding anything in return. Over the weeks that followed, she made it her mission to pull me out of my shadows. She'd find me in the cafeteria and slide into the seat across from me. She'd rope me into study groups and drag me to football games. And slowly, painfully, I began to come back to life. When she learned about my mom, her whole face softened. She didn't offer clichés or awkward condolences. Instead, she just said, "That must hurt like hell," and for the first time, I felt understood. From then on, Sophia became more than just a friend. She was my lifeline. My dad noticed too. At first, he was just relieved I wasn't hiding in my room all the time. One day, I invited Sophie over for dinner. For the first time after my mom passed, my dad actually smiled. "You're good for him," he told her, raising his glass of iced tea. Sophia blushed and said, "He's good for me too." That night stuck with me. It was the first time I felt like the three of us, Dad, Sophia, and me, were almost like a family again. Of course, I had no idea back then just how twisted that idea of family would become. Through high school, Sophia and I grew inseparable. We studied together, went to prom together, just as friends, though people often assumed otherwise, and spent summers hanging out at Barton Springs or cruising down South Congress with the windows rolled down, blasting music. She was there for every milestone of my life, and I was there for hers. When she started dating Mark in senior year, I pretended it didn't sting a little. He was a decent guy, steady, with plans to study engineering at Texas A&M. I liked him well enough, but part of me always wondered if Sophia and I were meant for something more. I never said it aloud. Maybe I was too scared to ruin what we had, or maybe I already knew she'd never look at me that way. Instead, I tucked those feelings deep inside and settled into the role of her best friend, the one she could count on, the one who knew her better than anyone else. And for years, that was enough. But looking back now, from the place I stand today, I can see the threads of fate weaving something far darker than friendship. I can see how every laugh we shared, every secret we whispered, every night we stayed up talking until sunrise, was leading me down a path that would eventually tear me apart. College was supposed to be a fresh start. That's what everyone kept telling me. After high school graduation, people acted like we'd all been handed a clean slate, like the past 4 years of awkwardness and pain could be erased with a tassel flip and a new dorm room. For most people, maybe that was true. But for me, the shadows of my mom's death still lingered, and the comfort I leaned on most wasn't a new beginning, it was Sophia. She and I both got accepted into the University of Texas at Austin. Different majors, she went into psychology, I chose business, but the same campus, the same city, the same easy closeness that had carried us through high school. Sophia thrived in college. She joined student organizations and threw herself into campus life like she'd been born for it. I was quieter, more reserved. But somehow, she always made room for me in her orbit. If she went to a party, she dragged me along. If I holed up in my dorm for too long, she showed up at my door with tacos and that stubborn look that meant I had no choice but to let her in. One Friday night early in freshman year, we sat on the grass near the UT Tower, the campus glowing behind us. I remember her lying back, hands tucked behind her head, staring at the sky. "You ever think about how different life would be if your mom was still here?" she asked softly. Her words hit me like a punch. Nobody else dared to say things like that, not even my dad. But Sophia always went straight for the truth. Every day, I admitted. Sometimes I think she'd be proud of me for even getting this far. Other times, I think she'd be disappointed that I'm still so lost. Sophia turned her head toward me, her hazel eyes shining under the lamplight. "Ethan, you're not lost. You're surviving. That's more than most people do. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you." That was Sophia, always knowing the right thing to say, always pulling me back from the edge. By sophomore year, our friendship was practically legendary. People called us inseparable. We weren't dating, though rumors floated around constantly. Sophia laughed them off, saying, "Ethan's like the brother I chose, not the boyfriend I didn't." I'd laugh too, though sometimes the words stung. Deep down, I knew she meant it. And deep down, I forced myself to accept it. Meanwhile, her relationship with Mark survived the transition from high school to college, at least at first. He studied engineering at Texas A&M, 2 hours away, which meant weekend visits and long-distance phone calls. Sophia would vent to me about their arguments, about his jealousy, about how he didn't always understand her the way I did. I listened, gave advice when I could, but mostly just held space for her. My dad had grown even fonder of Sophia. She often came home with me sometimes, and he treated her like his own daughter. By junior year, college life was in full swing. Sophia and I were practically living at each other's apartments, juggling classes and part-time jobs. Sometimes I wondered what people thought when they saw us. Did they think we were secretly dating? Did they assume we'd eventually end up together? One night, after a long study session, Sophia curled up on my couch with a blanket and whispered, "You know you're my person, right? Like, if everything else falls apart, I know I can always count on you." I nodded, my chest tightening with emotions I didn't dare name. "Always," I promised. And I meant it. With every fiber of my being, I meant it. If I had to describe those years in one word, it would be comfortable. By the time Sophia and I were juniors, our friendship wasn't just a part of my life, it was my life. It was the constant, the anchor, the one thing I could always count on when everything else felt uncertain. She knew me better than anyone. She could tell when I was faking a smile, when I was exhausted but pretending I wasn't, when I needed to be left alone and when I needed someone to push me out of my own head. And I knew her just as well. I could predict her moods and read her silences. We had years of shared language between us, inside jokes, subtle gestures, half smiles that said more than words ever could. To everyone else, we looked like a storybook waiting for its inevitable ending, two best friends who'd eventually wake up and realize they were meant for each other. People teased us, professors raised eyebrows when we signed up for the same classes, even Mark joked about it sometimes, though I could tell his laughter always carried an edge. But Sophia was firm. "He is my brother," she'd say to Mark, half laughing, half serious. "He is family." And that was what I became, family. My dad adored Sophia. The two of them got along effortlessly, and honestly, I loved it. Seeing my dad laugh again after years of grief felt like a miracle, and Sophia had a way of drawing it out of him without even trying. By senior year, it was normal for Sophia to spend more time at our house than at her own apartment. Sometimes she helped my dad with grocery runs when I was buried in schoolwork and projects. One summer, we all took a trip to Galveston. It wasn't anything fancy, just a weekend getaway at a rented beach house. I can still see it, Sophia sitting cross-legged on the deck, hair blowing wild in the salt air, telling my dad and me a story about her psychology professor who insisted he could diagnose anyone within 10 minutes. She laughed so hard she nearly spilled her soda, and my dad laughed with her, his shoulders shaking in a way I hadn't seen since Mom died. I didn't think much of it then. Why would I? She was like the sister I never had, and Dad treated her like a second daughter. To me, it was all good, all innocent. But looking back, I can see how those moments planted seeds I didn't recognize at the time. Seeds that would eventually grow into something poisonous. Still, in those days, I was blind to it. I was too wrapped up in the comfort of having her by my side. I still remember the final weeks of senior year, when I was on the verge of burning out. Sophia showed up at my apartment with coffee and sticky notes plastered with motivational quotes. She stayed up with me all night, quizzing me on business terms she didn't understand just so I wouldn't have to face it alone. "You're going to be great, Ethan," she told me when I finally slumped over my notes at dawn. "I know it. And if you don't believe in yourself, don't worry, I'll believe enough for both of us." That was Sophia. Always believing in me, even when I couldn't. They say hindsight is 20/20. Looking back now, I can trace every warning sign like a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to the truth. But at the time, I was blind. Or maybe I just didn't want to see. The first crack showed up one Sunday afternoon during my final semester at UT. Sophia and I had driven out to my dad's place for dinner. It was one of those warm Texas evenings where the air feels thick, cicadas buzzing in the trees, and the smell of barbecue drifting through the neighborhood. Dad was at the grill, flipping burgers, while Sophia stood beside him, chatting away. When I came outside, I caught a glimpse of her leaning in a little too close, her laugh soft, almost different. It wasn't the big, carefree laugh I knew so well. It was smaller, almost private. "Everything good out here?" I asked, trying to sound casual. They both looked up quickly. "Yeah," my dad said, maybe too quickly. "Sophia was just telling me about her internship." Sophia added, "Yes, nothing major." She brushed her hair behind her ear, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times before, but suddenly it felt unfamiliar, like she was nervous. I shrugged it off. Why wouldn't I? They were friends. We were all friends. But once you notice a crack, it's hard not to see others. A week later, I came home earlier than expected from a late-night study session. I wanted the comfort of my room at home because it didn't remind me of schoolwork. Sophia was in the living room with Dad, both of them bent over his laptop. They didn't hear me at first. Their heads were close, too close, and when they realized I was there, they jolted upright like kids caught stealing cookies. She didn't mention that she was going to visit my dad. What's going on? I asked. I am just helping your dad with some email setup, Sophia said quickly. Her tone was bright, almost forced. You know he's hopeless with technology. Dad chuckled, scratching the back of his neck and looking guilty of what I couldn't place. She's my unofficial IT support. I wanted to laugh, too, but something inside me didn't sit well with the situation. It was late, nearly midnight. Why was she at my house instead of her place? Why did she look like she'd been caught in something she didn't want me to see? Still, I swallowed the questions. I didn't want to seem paranoid. Then there were the text messages. Sophia and I texted constantly. It was normal for my phone to light up with her name at all hours. But one night, in my apartment, after she fell asleep on the couch during a movie, I saw her phone buzz. A new message flashed across the screen, "Can't wait to see you again." The sender's name? Dad. My heart stopped. I stared at the screen, trying to process. Before I could spiral, Sophia stirred, and I quickly looked away. She didn't notice I'd seen it. That night, I lay in bed replaying it over and over in my mind. The words, the tone. "Can't wait to see you again." It could have meant anything. But deep down, my mind told me something isn't right. From then on, I started watching. At dinners, I noticed their glances lingering too long. When Dad poured her a glass of wine, their fingers brushed and neither pulled away immediately. When Sophia laughed at his jokes, it was the kind of laugh that was more intimate than casual. But every time the suspicion flared, I stamped it down. Then came the day that ruined everything. I've replayed that night in my mind 1,000 times. Sometimes I wonder if I could have handled it differently, if I could have turned back, closed my eyes, kept the illusion alive a little longer. But the truth has a way of forcing itself into the light, whether you're ready for it or not. It was a Friday evening in late spring. I just finished a brutal week of exams and decided to surprise Sophia with dinner. She'd told me she was staying in that night, catching up on work for her internship. I figured I'd grab takeout from her favorite Thai place and swing by her apartment. I pulled into her complex around 7. Her car was parked in its usual spot, which was an indication that was home. Balancing the takeout bags, I climbed the stairs to her unit, rehearsing in my head how I'd tease her about being a workaholic. I had a key to her apartment, so when I knocked and didn't get an answer, I decided to let myself in. When I got in, I noticed the faint sound of laughter drifting from her room. If Mark was around, she'd have told me. I would have seen his car parked outside. My stomach tightened at the thought of her cheating on Mark. I followed the sound toward her room, where the glow of a lamp spilled through a half-cracked door. I froze. Inside, my dad was lying on the bed while Sophia was sitting on him in her undies. The bags slipped from my hands, containers crashing to the floor. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst through my chest. What the hell is this? My voice cracked, raw and jagged. Ethan, Sophia started, jumping down from the bed, her face pale. But I didn't let her finish. Don't you dare. I turned to my dad, my own father, the man I had trusted more than anyone. Tell me this isn't what it looks like. He didn't answer right away. And in that pause, those few seconds of silence, my entire world caved in. Finally, he said, "Son, I can explain." My voice rose, shaking with fury. Explain what? Sophia tried reaching toward me. I jerked back like her touch might burn me. My vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. You were my family, I whispered. My throat was tight, the words scraping like glass. Both of you. Neither spoke. Neither moved. And in that silence, I understood everything. The late-night texts. The secret glances. The lies. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was truth. Brutal and shattering. I stumbled backward, out the door. I could hear them calling my name, but the sound was distant, muffled, like I was underwater. My chest heaved, my stomach churned, and I thought I might vomit right there. I got in my car and drove. I don't even remember where. Maybe nowhere. The whole night is a blur of headlights and tears and the taste of betrayal on my tongue. I lasted 3 days in silence before I broke. 3 days of unanswered calls, sleepless nights, and pacing the floor like a caged animal. By the 4th day, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I needed answers. Sophia was the first. I drove to her apartment without calling ahead. My heart hammered with every floor I climbed until I was standing outside her door, fists trembling with rage. She opened on the second knock. Her face was pale, her hair pulled back like she hadn't slept either. For a moment, she looked relieved. Then she saw my eyes, and the relief drained away. "Ethan," she whispered. "Please, come in. Let me explain." I stepped inside, slamming the door behind me. "Explain what?" "That you've been sleeping with my father behind my back. That the one person I trusted with everything I am decided to stab me in the gut and smile while doing it." She flinched, tears welling in her hazel eyes. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." My laugh was bitter, sharp. "Supposed to happen? So you admit it?" Sophia wrapped her arms around herself, nodding. "Yes. We've been seeing each other." Her voice cracked, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or fear. "I didn't mean for you to find out this way." The room spun around me, fury pressing against my chest until I thought I might explode. "How long?" I asked. "A few months," she said. I shook my head, pacing. "And what about Mark? You're still with him, aren't you?" She looked me dead in the eye and said, "No. I ended things with him months ago." But I knew her too well. The hesitation before she spoke, the way her lip quivered, she was lying. And that lie cut deeper than the confession. Not only was she with my father, she was stringing Mark along too. "You're unbelievable," I said. "You've been lying to everyone. To me. To him. To yourself." She started to cry, reaching for me, but I shoved her hand away. "Don't you dare cry like you're the victim here." I left before she could answer, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. That same night, I drove to my dad's house. The lights were on, his truck in the driveway. I didn't knock, I stormed inside, fury buzzing in my veins. He was in the living room, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked up, startled, as I stood in the doorway. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low, dangerous. He set the glass down slowly. "Ethan, I know you're angry." I cut him off, my voice rising. "You think I'm just angry? You've been sleeping with my best friend, Dad. The girl you knew was like a sister to me. How could you?" He sighed, shoulders sagging, as though the weight of his secret had finally crushed him. "I won't lie to you. Yes, Sophia and we've been seeing each other." Hearing it from him, the final confirmation, was like being punched in the chest. "You're my father," I said, my voice breaking. "You raised me better than this. And her, she was family. How could you look at me every day knowing what you were doing behind my back?" "I didn't plan for it," he said weakly. "It just happened. We didn't mean for you to get hurt." I stared at him, rage and disgust boiling in my gut. He tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. My whole body shook with the effort not to put my fist through the wall, or through him. "You know what the worst part is?" I said finally, my voice low, trembling with rage. "You didn't just betray me. You took the two people I trusted most in this world and turned them into strangers." I left before he could answer, slamming the door behind me. That night, I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring into the darkness. They admitted it. They both admitted it. And as much as it broke me, there was one truth that burned hotter than the pain. I wasn't going to let them walk away unscathed. Telling Mark was the hardest decision I'd made in years. But he deserved the truth. The truth Sophia had been too cowardly to admit. I called him late one afternoon, my hands shaking as I dialed. When his voice came through the line, upbeat and casual, my throat tightened. "Ethan, what's up, man?" I swallowed hard. "We need to talk. In person." There was a pause, the smile fading from his voice. "You sound serious." He sighed. "Yeah," I said flatly. "It is." We met that evening at Rusty's Diner, the same place the three of us used to grab late-night burgers whenever Mark came visiting. Walking through the door felt like a cruel joke. Mark was already in a booth, waving me over with the same easy grin I'd known since freshman year. But as I slid into the seat across from him, the weight of what I was about to say stole any sense of comfort. I didn't dance around it. I didn't have the strength. "Mark," I said quietly, "Sophia isn't who you think she is. She's been lying to you. She's been lying to me too." His grin faltered. "What do you mean?" I met his eyes, steady but heavy. "She's been seeing my father." The words landed like a thunderclap. His face twisted in confusion first, then disbelief, then dawning horror. "That's not funny," he said sharply. "I'm not joking." My voice was raw, almost shaking. I caught them. I confronted them both. They admitted it. "She's with him, Mark. While she's still with you." He stared at me, his jaw tightening, his hands curling into fists on the table. "You're telling me, Sophia, your Sophia, my Sophia, has been sleeping with your dad while she's with me?" "Yes," I said simply, the word burning on my tongue. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Then Mark leaned back, his face pale, his eyes hollow. "All this time I thought she was different. Thought she was loyal." He laughed bitterly. "Guess we were both idiots." "She lied to both of us," I said quietly. "We deserve to know." He nodded slowly, staring down at the table, his jaw tight. Well, she's done. She's dead to me. And just like that, Sophia lost us both. That night, I drove back to my father's house. Walking through the door felt like stepping into a place that no longer belonged to me. Every room echoed with betrayal. The photos on the walls, the furniture, the memories, they all felt tainted. I packed my things in silence, shoving clothes into bags, boxing up the pieces of my life that hadn't already been poisoned. My father tried to stop me, his voice echoing from the hallway. "Ethan, please. Don't do this. You don't have to leave." I didn't even look at him. "You made your choice, Dad. Now I'm making mine." He stepped closer, desperation in his voice. "You're my son." I turned then, my eyes blazing. "You stopped being my father the day you betrayed me. You don't get to play family now." His face crumpled, but I didn't care. I shouldered my bags and walked out without looking back. As for Sophia, I cut her off completely. Blocked her number. Deleted her photos. Erased her from my life like she was nothing more than a ghost. I moved on not because the pain was gone, it wasn't. Not because I forgave them, I never would. Years have passed since those nights of betrayal. The anger doesn't burn as hot anymore, though the scars remain. Time has a way of dulling pain, of softening rage into something more manageable. But I will never forget. Sophia tried reaching out a few times after everything unraveled, emails, blocked numbers, social media accounts she created just to get through to me. I ignored them all. She lost both me and Mark, and last I heard, she drifted from one shallow relationship to another, never finding the stability she claimed to want. As for my father, our relationship never recovered. I cut ties completely, moved out, and started my life somewhere new. He tried to reach me a few times, but I never picked up. Some betrayals are too deep for reconciliation. The end.